What is up, AFC North Roundtable football fans? Welcome into another edition of the AFC North Roundtable, powered by BetUS. Week 2 is in the books, and this division makes absolutely no sense. The Steelers have 1 touchdown, yet 2 wins. The Browns are on the board, and the 2 teams you thought would be fighting for the top of the division are the 2 teams who are winless in this division. Make it make sense. We will try to tonight as we bring on all 4 of your representatives for the Steelers, Browns, Bengals, and Ravens. Of course, starting with the man who still stands alone, Mark 2-0. How you feeling, brother?
Mate, it makes sense to me. I called in the offseason 11-6. I thought we have a chance to win the division. Everyone gave me slack about it, and here we are. The Bengals 0-2, the Ravens 0-2, who lost to the Patriots, lost to the Raiders. Unreal. And now we're going to hear soon as well. Steelers only beat the Falcons. The Steelers only beat Denver. Don't care. We're 2-0.
Tell you what, the one thing that might be the most consistent thing I've seen thus far this season is the fact that the Steelers brand of football remains the Steelers brand of football, regardless of how they do it. They wind up doing it. 2-0 are your Steelers. We'll dive into it throughout the show. Can't wait. Chef Zay's on the board. He's 1-1. Browns get a W. Congrats to you, Chef Z. Feeling better than you did last week?
Oh, actually, I would say we're feeling magnificent over here, but the Browns fans are just spoiled for some reason. I don't understand why they can't appreciate a win. They can't appreciate steps moving forward. But meanwhile, over here, I'm in Disney World, so I'm loving it right now.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. You know how it goes. It's not always a win is a win. You got to win like New Orleans is winning for anyone to be satisfied these days. But hey, you're on the board. Unfortunately, it's more than these 2 boys can say. I bring in my man Zim. It was close. It was close, Zim, but ultimately 0-2. Hell of a game against the Chiefs, though.
Hell of a game, right? Is that an instant classic, boys? Is that an instant classic?
I think it might have been. Classic. I think it might have been.
I wanted to ask Bob that, but I wanted to do a temperature check because last week we got a lot of coddling going on for L. I'm hoping that I get the same coddling for my L that the Ravens received for their L. For almost beating the Chiefs when the Bengals lose on 4th and 16. Let's see what the energy's like today.
Unfortunately, there's no Bobby here to defend himself. He sends my man Sam to the Wolves to defend these 0-2 Ravens. Sam, we appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me. It's tough to defend us right now because we're so abysmal on the record column, but lots of football left.
You said it was close, Jim, right? You said coddling for a close game. The Ravens, it wasn't close until it was close, and all of a sudden it wasn't a win or it wasn't a loss until it was a loss. Craziness going on around the league, and this division is no different. As it stands right now, once again, Steelers 2-0, Browns 1-1, Bengals 0-2, Ravens 0-2. And it doesn't get any easier when you look towards how the league is constructed based on the playoff opportunities for these teams and how they start. And the Ravens have a real tough game coming up against Dallas. Both these teams are desperate. So the league is off to a crazy start. And this division, of course, is no different. I was doing a little bit of stalling there as I'm waiting for my man Mark to get back. I think is the internet not all that great down under right now? Or are we all good?
Yeah, I think the bloody kangaroos got or something, mate. I don't know what happened then. I got kicked off. I thought it was you fellas. It was me.
They don't know what to do with 2-0 down there.
Exactly right.
Freaking out.
Mark's just toying with the boys at this point. He's like, I'm just going to mess with you while I have the chance. Mark, let's start with you. Let's start on a positive note today. Let's start with the W's. Mark, I don't get it yet again. I do get it. Like you just said, it's like you had said, there's a way that the Steelers win, and it just seems to happen regardless of their situation. It's through defense, and it's just through Mike Tomlin somehow finding a way. The Pittsburgh Steelers do it yet again. As I mentioned at the top of the show, this Pittsburgh Steelers team has 1 touchdown on the entire season, yet they are the only 2-0 team in this division. They win the ball game this past Sunday, 13-6 over the Denver Broncos. Zay, I'm going to start with you on this one and talking about Pittsburgh. Any of this shock you, or is this just status quo Pittsburgh football and you're rolling with the punches at this point?
I wouldn't say it shocks me. It is a little, what's the word you use? I mean, congrats, I guess. Like, no one expected it. I won't say it's shocking because at the end of the day, it is the Steelers, right? Like, they still have Tomlin. They still have this defense that is clearly one of the best in the league. And, and they had a pretty easy first 2 games, to be honest. Like, Mark's not going to want to hear it, but it is what it is. So I'm ready for them to fall. It's going to hurt when they fall, and I'm going to be laughing when it happens. So I know Zim will be too.
It just feels like we're waiting for the Mike Tomlin, the inevitable to happen, right? The never had a losing record narrative gets brought into every season. You've heard the stat 1,000 times. It just seems recently it's been set up for him to have it, yet here they are. They start out 2-0. Justin Fields has 117 yards, yet they somehow find a way to win with 13 points. Zim, you're watching this. I mean, obviously, you've been a fan of the Bengals your whole life. Therefore, you've watched the Steelers your whole life. Any of this shocking to you, or is this just something you expect with Pittsburgh?
This is I've seen this my whole entire life, where you watch players that you're like, I don't really believe in this guy like that. It might have been a former player. I remember when we had James Harrison. He did nothing with the Bengals. He went back to the Steelers, and they just get the most out of their players, bro. And they do this all the time, and they get these weird, sneaky wins. I can pause for 1 second. I'm still getting over the fact, everybody just pay attention. Zay, a Browns fan, told a Steelers fan they don't know what it's like to be 2-0. Like, let's just wrap our head around this. The team that has the most losingest record for the last 35 years of football is telling anybody how to feel about wins is insane to me. I don't know how we're going to get past that. But back to the Steelers, though. I think that the Steelers, like, they just figure out different ways to get sneaky wins, bro. Like, and this is what it's going to be like. I still think that they probably sneak into the playoffs. Ultimately, I think we've seen this movie before, but man, I'm telling y'all, these dudes in their defense, as Mark pointed out, Mark could talk his stuff, bro. Mark was the only one that really believed like that, and I'm a big proponent of if you win, let people know about it. And for sure, he did on the first show say that his defense is a lot better, and they are. To me, they're a top 5 defense in the National Football League right now.
No question about it. And when you just know how good it is when you watch a rookie quarterback go up against this, you can just tell in those moments how dominant the Pittsburgh Steelers D is, because Bo Nix looked like, I mean, talk about seeing ghosts back in the day, like Sam Darnold was saying with the Jets. That's what it looked like for Bo Nix this past week. And 13 points for Pittsburgh. It doesn't matter. They get it done without turning the ball over. They're able to win through this defense. Sam, as you watch these Steelers go 2-0, scoring 1 touchdown, the fact that you are a foot length away from a W and then a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter from another W, you scratch all of that and you're 0-2. How frustrating is it from your perspective to see the Steelers at 2-0 playing the way they are, that your Ravens 0-2 playing the way they are? Where do you sit right now on the Steelers situation?
It's frustrating, but just knowing the Steelers, it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, last year the defense was looking phenomenal. They had Kenny Pickett at quarterback, so you knew just a slight upgrade at that position would pay dividends for them. So I'm not surprised by the start. Obviously, the first 2 opponents are lesser tier opponents, but the fact remains they're getting the job done. And the Ravens would love to have this type of football team, a team that will have a chance to win at every moment, instead of having a lead and knowing that there's no shot that there isn't going to be a heartbreaking defeat. That's the type of feeling I'm getting with the Ravens right now, and the Steelers are the complete opposite.
Mark, talk that talk, baby. Step up to the plate and let everyone know. 2-0. 1, how does it feel? And 2, just your overall assessment thus far. I mean, regardless of how they're winning, And there's just something about this, as unimpressive as it is, it's beyond impressive at the same point. So talk to me about your 2-0 Steelers.
All right. I don't know what's worse, my internet or your fucking takes. Honestly, like you said, easy teams sneak into the playoffs and lest your opponents. Are you kidding? So you can say it now, right? You say it now when it's like, oh, we're 2-0 and we just. But like 2 weeks ago, I was like, oh, you're gonna get beat. You're gonna be 0-2. You're gonna be the worst in the division. Come on, man. Like that's all I'm hearing is from Steelers fans, is AFC North fans. Oh, you only beat the Falcons. You only beat Denver. Now I will admit, Denver. Anyone can beat Denver. I think they're a bad team. I think Bo Nix. I think he looks kind of bad out there. I don't think he's in the best environment. And was it really Russell Wilson and Sean Payton out there and coaching, that kind of stuff? I don't know. Now, we didn't play Russell Wilson. We played Justin Fields. But look, it's good to be 2-0. I think that when you start winning, you get in this category of pretender or contender or whatever it may be. So are we pretenders? Well, we'll soon find out in the next 4 or 5 weeks. That's for sure. Same time, feels pretty good. I don't care. I legit don't care. Like I think like being 2-0, and if you guys, can't get the W's early, it's gonna be hard to catch up. And we got a lot of AFC North games to play near the end too. But in the game itself, I thought it was pretty good. With this, it's how Steelers are playing football this year. They ran the ball 36 times. They're not allowing Fields to really pass the rock that much. But honestly, too, the game in itself, if Zim's game with the Chiefs was an instant classic, this wasn't. This was like a flag fest. It was bad. There was 19 or 20 penalties on either team. It was pretty awful to watch. It wasn't the best game. But overall, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty good.
You want to know what I think is the most impressive thing about this? Because I think everyone could have assumed Mike Tomlin against a rookie, yeah, probably not going to go over very well for Bo Nix, and it didn't. 35 attempts, 2 interceptions. They could not move the ball. But what I'm looking at here, Mark, 11 rushes for Javonte Williams, 17 yards. Bo Nix in back-to-back weeks is now the leading rusher for the Broncos in both games, but 4 carries for 25 yards is what led the way. So not only do you shut down the rookie quarterback, they couldn't run the ball at all. So I guess the question is here, despite the fact that Justin Fields isn't putting up crazy numbers, he's not turning the ball over. So do you think the way that they're winning, despite the fact that they're not scoring, is it sustainable? Because the way that they're doing it is the way the Steelers have been doing it for a while, and it just feels like nobody's going to be able to go against this Pittsburgh D and have an easy outing, especially if Justin Fields does what is benefiting them right now, and that's simply just not turning the ball over.
If we take off our fantasy brand for a while and we go into Justin Fields doesn't turn the ball over, gets 1 TD. We've got Chris Boswell, who's probably the best kicker in football right now, but nobody wants to talk about that. They want to talk about Justin Tucker, but Justin Tucker's been missing a few 50s recently. Chris Boswell's up there. Honest to goodness, I hope they don't talk about Chris Boswell being the best, because I think he does his best work like that. Don't turn the ball over. Run the rock, like I said, with 36 carries. Warren's starting to get healthy. Najee is in there. And, of course, we need to get better on the O-line and better protection and that kind of stuff. I think every team does. No one's perfect right now. But this defense, like I said to you guys 2 weeks ago, it's insane. Like, we have rotational players like Nick Herbig going in there and getting pressure and trying to get a sack. We have other guys in there, Dante Jackson or who's the other bloke? Elliott from the Ravens too. He's playing really good football at the moment. So I think, yeah, it can be, because I think people take all the people love the Saints right now. It's great to score 46 points, but Mike Tomlin's always kind of been like this, where he's won over, I think, 100 games with 1-score games. And in that sense, if you get enough points, which is 17 points, and you play, there was a time in this game it was 13-0, and I thought we had it because Bo Nix could not go down the field at all. Now I'm being a little bit overconfident, but you go back and watch the game, Bo Nix was never really going to score a game. So I guess time will tell. But being 2-0, and I think that the real big burner we had a few years ago was a 2020 season with Claypool losing Never Heard of Her. That's going to stick with us until we get to the very end and win a playoff game, to be honest.
But even when Bo Nix was able to do something, right? They had that the flea flicker bomb, right? And
that was crazy.
But even then, they can't get in the end zone. It's just a testament to Pittsburgh, the bend but don't break. So what is it now? 16 total points allowed through 2 weeks. It's pretty impressive when you look at the upcoming schedule too. The Chargers offense hasn't looked great, and they haven't played the most stout opponents. The Colts haven't looked good. That's around the corner. You got the Raiders, right? You got the Giants. So who knows? These wheels can keep turning for Pittsburgh. We'll see. But through 2 weeks, they stand alone at the top of the division. And Mark, I know you got to be feeling good about it, especially from the defensive side of things. So somebody else who's got to be feeling good, especially after the way things went week 1. That's my man, Chef Zay. The Browns get on the board. Wasn't the prettiest of games, but to Mark's credit as well, it doesn't matter. Pretty or not, a win's a win. 18-13 W over a Jacksonville Jaguars team who I think everybody thought was going to be, a playoff contender. They've now lost 7 of their last 8, and the Browns made them realize that they might not be as close as they thought they were. Deshaun Watson gets on the board. This Browns defense steps up, and the Browns improved to 1-1. Zim, I'll start with you on this one. What did you think of what you saw from Cleveland this past weekend against the Jaguars?
I thought if you're a Browns fan, I will be encouraged by what I saw from Watson, to me personally, because to me he was very bad. I thought he was the worst. Like we came on the show, and I don't think I emphasized how bad he was week 1. And when you go back and watch it, I mean, the inaccuracies and all these different things. The first 3 drives of this game. So I was at my game, but then on the plane, I went back and watched everybody else's game, whatever. And the first 3 drives of the game, he had a rhythm, and he was moving like what you want to see. I thought he took a crazy throw like on the sideline, and Judy caught it. He had a whole bunch of different things on those first 3 drives. Then it kind of slimmed out for him. But then he does make a real big throw to Judy on the sideline on the left-hand side. That's a huge throw. I would have liked to see him like close him out, and not even get a Raiders a chance. I mean, not the Raiders, the Jaguars a chance. Not even give them a chance. He didn't do that. And to me, the best quarterbacks in the league, that's what they do very well, is like sit on the clock, finish you out, and then that's it. I thought Jerome Ford had some good runs like there. He had one that was like a counter off to the left or something over on the left-hand sideline. He had some good stuff in there too. The defense, I think the one thing, and it reared his head in the playoffs when they played the Texans, is that if you have tight ends that have some wiggle to them, you can get out on them because they're going to take away what you want to do on the outside. The tight ends, I thought, had a pretty good damn day for the Jags. Trevor Lawrence made some plays. I'm not a big Trevor Lawrence fan. I think for his expectations, I consider him damn near a bust at this point in my mind because of the expectation levels of what he had when he was coming into the league. Jaguars fought back. I thought he made stupid decisions all day. Credit them for a win. And if you're a Browns fan, like I said, from what he was before, and if you look at what he was last year and all that stuff like that, to me, I would be encouraged if I were them.
Yeah, speaking of your point to Trevor Lawrence, I think he's now 20-32 as a starter, and this Browns defense had him all over the place. 14 of 30, fellas, below a 50% completion percentage. They also weren't running the ball tremendously well either. So despite scoring 18 points for Cleveland, it was enough to get it done. And through the first 2 weeks in the NFL here, it's not like any quarterback is lighting it up. And I mean, Zim, you know it. Your Bengals probably held Mahomes maybe his worst game of his career. It just seems to be these defenses that wind up getting it done early on here in the season. Sam, what did you see from the Cleveland Browns this past weekend in their 5-point victory over the Jags?
I saw some encouraging signs. I mean, after week 1, I thought, wow, Deshaun Watson's looking like he could be benched after that huge contract that they got a few years back. But I saw some things that I liked from Deshaun Watson. I think that Deshaun Watson's kind of taking the approach of, okay, I'm not going to lose the game for the Browns anymore. Similar to the Steelers, the Browns do have a great defense, and it could lead into a lot of victories, and that was the case against the Jaguars. But I think Deshaun Watson's taking the approach of, okay, let me manage this game. Let me be the wily vet that I am and do what I have to do in certain situations to maybe push this team over the edge. But let's not be Superman. Let's not be Lamar Jackson. Let's not be Patrick Mahomes. Let's not be Joe Burrow. Let's go out there and just do what I have to do to get the win. And I think that the Browns have a great formula for doing so. And I'm a little higher on the Browns now than even the Ravens right now, because I think if Deshaun Watson can play that style of football for 17 games, that defense has enough wiggle in them to potentially make the postseason.
Mark, it felt like Cleveland took a page out of your Steelers book, right? 18 points, doesn't matter. Get the job done. Defense looked great. What'd you think from Cleveland this past weekend?
Dude, what I really thought was I was hoping you'd lose, so we'll build 0-2, 0-2, 0-2, and 2-0. I thought it'd be fantastic. No, the Browns played a pretty good game. They're very physical team. You have to give them that. The Jags, not so much. I think they're in a bit of panic mode too with what they're doing with their franchise over there. So I thought the game, I only really saw half of it because, honest to goodness, it is really hard to watch another team win that is the AFC North. And I know I have to probably get better at that because I'm on the show and I need to take rather than say Browns suck. But no, they're very physical. Like the defense is like four sacks. They got a safety near the end. How does it even happen? Like they got a safety for them to come back and they had a minute to go down the field, try and do like a Peyton Manning or whatever for Trevor Lawrence and put his name in the instant classic mode. And they got a safety to kick the ball back. And then just, the Jaguars went for a Hail Mary right near the end too. The Browns, they walked in, took over, got the job done, settled down a bit, calmed down. It's probably exactly what I know. Zay said these Browns fans are complaining about something, but that's what you want is an ugly win like that, 1-on-1, settle the ship, take on the Jags. And they're all, honest to goodness, the more physical team, I think, running the ball, tackling, defense, all that kind of stuff. I think they were just over the Jags. So, I don't think the Jags would last a minute in our AFC North, to be honest, with our crew.
Zay, I saw you were down low right on the end zone. It looked like you were having a ball at this game. You look at the numbers. Cleveland, 2 of 14 on third down, but every fourth down opportunity they had, they took advantage of. It just felt like they did enough to get the W in this game. It's not like Jacksonville, despite their struggles, is a pushover. This was still a game that, was set up to be a test for Cleveland, and they met it. They were able to get it done, get that W. We know the difference between 1-1 and 0-2 can be pretty damn drastic in this league. So big W for Cleveland. Talk to me about what you saw from your Browns and how encouraged you are based on this past game compared to what wound up going down against Dallas in week 1.
Well, being down there was, first off, I haven't had that much fun. I'm 31. I ain't had that much fun in a long time. Like, it was different. The atmosphere was crazy. The love that I got, like, seeing so many fans that were from a different state is, seeing it in Ohio is one thing, but going to a different state and getting it is a whole different ball game. So shout out to everybody that said what's up there. But Stefanski's never went 0-2 in his whole era here. So, it's kind of nice to see them pick right back up where they left off and, like following the script of what they've been doing. But I think the big takeaway is the Deshaun Watson step moving forward. A lot of people here in Cleveland can't seem to take little silver linings and little positives to move forward with. They just want to get it all back in one chunk. But we're winning the games, and that's really what matters most. Deshaun Watson, and you said it, he made the best throws of the game. All the ones on the sideline are crazy. Like, those are 2020 Deshaun Watson throws, whether you want to admit it or not. So the fact that he took those little steps after a horrendous first game where, Sam, you said it, it looked like they wanted to call for his job, which is where all these allegations, we ain't gonna go down that road. But we talk about some of the other things. The defense, like, I'm sitting front row and you can see the jitter that they had. It almost looked like we was at a home game. They're out here hyping up the crowd like they knew they needed a bounce back game, and sure enough, they did. I think Corey Bojorquez, shout out to that man. That punt at the end of the game was supposed to be a chef kiss to an end of the game, but then Kevin Stefanski, I don't know how, should Deshaun Watson have taken the sack? Absolutely. But the fact that you're passing the ball when you're up and they have 2 timeouts left and you are 20 seconds away from the 2-minute warning, there should be no passing at all. Run the damn ball and milk this clock out and let this defense go take over like they've been doing, and don't even give them an opportunity. So that was the one thing that this very easily could have been a catastrophe at the end of the game for that alone reason. But the one guy that I've been preaching about all offseason, Alex Wright, man, taking the big step, coming up with that safety at the end and pretty much sealing the deal for us. And, it's time to get this little separation that we got, like Mark talked about. You don't want to get down 0-3 in this division, especially with how tough it's going to be in this stretch with all these AFC North opponents coming up.
Sean Manahan coming in with the super chat. He's saying defense wins championships. Well, thus far, defense has won games for Mark's Steelers and for Zay's Browns. Now, speaking of your Browns, it's going to be a good opportunity, I would imagine, to get back on track. Not only do they get the win this past week, but they have the lowly New York Giants coming up. And if we head over to BetUS and take a peek right now, the Cleveland Browns this upcoming weekend, as of course it goes away right when I'm trying to tell you what I tell you. The Cleveland Browns, as you saw for a quick second there, I'll pull it back up. They are a 6.5-point favorite against the New York Giants this upcoming weekend. If you didn't hear, the New York Giants this past week became the second team in NFL history to score 3 touchdowns, not allow a touchdown, and lose the ball game. So you have to imagine the Browns are feeling good right now, taking that W into a game against the Giants where they're a 6.5-point favorite right now on BetUS. So if you think the Browns are due for another good game where they take it to the Giants, you can take advantage right now of the 150% sign-up bonus we have going on for you over at BetUS. Use the promo code YouTube150. That's going to get you 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and 125% sign-up bonus on your next 2 deposits after that. Cleveland has to be feeling pretty good right now, Zay, about getting that W and taking that against the Giants.
Zeba, have you seen the updated AFC North odds on there?
You know what? I haven't. I'm glad you're bringing that. Let's go take a peek at that. Let's see where Pittsburgh is. That's a great point. I haven't taken a peek.
I don't know. It might be a couple of surprises on there for everybody, but
let's go take a look.
Let's take a look at it. If you're really confident in your team and in Mark,
we're still third, are they? We're like 3rd or 4th or something like that. Still,
if you got the confidence, there's another team.
Look it out! Things have changed.
Come on, let me see.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Oh my! This disrespect, man. Listen here. I'm about sick of this disrespectful. You're telling me the Steelers have a? Come on, man. Okay, get your free money now. Bet US, use promo code YouTube 150 because plus 450 2 weeks in. You gotta be kidding me.
Zim, I'm glad you brought this up. How about it? The 0-2 Ravens, the 0-2 Bengals still tied to win the division at plus 200. The Steelers were, I don't even think I could mathematically make out the number that they were a couple of weeks ago. They're now plus 280, so they're on the heels of the Bengals and the Ravens. Zay, how are you feeling about this disrespect? More than double the odds less of the Bengals and the Ravens right now, despite being 1-1.
Let them sleep, man. Because listen, all off season, they told me Jerry Jeudy was overpaid. All off season, they told me Jerry Jeudy weren't worth the money. And since then, he been wide receiver 1 for 2 weeks straight. So I'm going to go ahead and let them keep sleeping on CLE. If, like I said, you want that free bag, man, because it's going to get gritty. That plus 280 is a donation. You might as well hit the Cash App if you want to donate some bread. I can give you the Cash App because that's just ridiculous. But the Bengals and Ravens, will get into them later.
I don't think Zay's Cash App has the sign-up bonus we have going on right now at BetUS. So if you do want to take advantage of that, I'll tell you, Cleveland at plus 450 doesn't seem like the worst thing in the world, especially after the way things have shaken out thus far. And what's shaken out thus far is an 0-2 start for both the Bengals and the Ravens. Now, to Zim's defense, this is nothing new for these Bengals. They've done this before, and they wind up figuring it out. This is only the 5th time in franchise history for the Ravens that they've started off 0-2, and they got the Dallas Cowboys this coming week, who is as desperate, you feel like, as the Ravens might be. So really interesting the way things are laying out as we transition from the 2 W's of the weekend to the 2 L's. Let's start with the Cincinnati Bengals. There's no shame in losing a game in Arrowhead to the Kansas City Chiefs, but it just felt like all day long the Bengals were the better team, and it was a pass interference away at the end from being 1-1 as opposed to 0-2. But regardless, we know the Chiefs somehow find a way. Week 1 against Sam's Ravens, it's a foot. They get a W. This week, it's a pass interference despite Mahomes putting up 150 yards and 2 picks. A 1-point loss for the Cincinnati Bengals as they do fall to 0-2. Zay, I'll start right back with you. You watched these Bengals. It looked like they were probably the better team on the football field throughout the day. It looked like they had it wrapped up at the end. Couldn't take advantage of that interception. Mahomes gets the ball back. It's 4th and forever. There's the flag, boom. And you know when Bucker's walking out, it's pretty much iced up the way he's been kicking the ball. So talk to me about what you saw from Cincy over the weekend against the Chiefs.
Well, I didn't get to catch much of it, so I had to watch the footnotes and the highlights and stuff. But it seemed as if since he was in control pretty much the whole game, like it's just one of those things like, and I talked about this last week on the show. It almost seems as if it was a storybook for the Bengals to start off 0-2. Joe Burrow, from everything that I've seen in social media, it seems as if he's back. Like I said, I didn't get to see much, but it seems as if he's on the right track to being where he needs to be. But obviously, man, as I come over here and look at the box score, like if Gesicki's your number 1 receiver, go off. We'll let you try to beat us with Gesicki as long as Chase and these guys aren't carving you up, because when you go over and you look at that Raiders game, when we talk about, that's how they won the game. They were going to their money players. And I think, since he will figure it out, Chase and T. Higgins, once everything gets back and this offense gets flowing and this goes on, this is nothing new for Cincy. They'll be fine. But as far as the instant classic, I'm interested to know and get Zim's insight, because I know he got the best point of view for us.
It does feel, however, any game that the Chiefs are involved in, it's an instant classic. The only problem with the Chiefs instant classics, they seem to win every damn one of them. That's why we don't like them as instant classics, because the Chiefs wind up taking them every freaking time. Mark, the Chiefs barely edge it out. I don't know how the hell they did, but they did, and the Bengals fall to 0-2. What did you think about the game between the Chiefs and the Bengals?
I've only really got 2 points for this game. To be honest, I think they're really two really big points too. First point is, why is there so much bloody red in the screen? Like, I'm watching this game and all I see is the Chiefs are red, and it was doing my head in. I couldn't handle all the orange, and I couldn't handle all the red. And I dislike both teams. But I really want to talk about this point. I know Zim goes into it, right? That flag for my homies and their pass interference is almost the 12th player. We talked about a few weeks ago that they always seem to give my homies a chance near the end, and that's exactly what happened.
So are you saying that wasn't a flag though?
I'm not too sure. It was a bit too high. The ball was over his head. He came in from behind. I think it's like a 50-50 play, but it does seem like that Mahomes does get those calls near the end. and then gives them a chance to go win, and the next minute they lose by that. It's a controversial call. I'm not saying I think you could have not thrown it there. You could have let football be played out. It does seem like that where they throw a flag and next minute they're rolling down the field to get a field goal to win or have a chance to win or get a bit of extra help. He was under duress all day. He was getting, interceptions and Bengals were playing, I think, the better game at the time. But in that sense, I think that's when the flags do get involved and they kind of like put a bit of an X on the game rather than like an instant. You know what's funny? This instant classic might be our little slang the whole year. It could be the instant classic, right? No, I thought it was like I only saw the highlights. I didn't see the 40. I saw the highlights of the 5-minute highlights, but I did see the one big point. I thought that flag was just like, ooh, we see it now. Taylor Swift up in the box. Oh, we see a flag. Go down and win the game. I think that's a huge problem in the NFL where they control games like that.
I think if you were to look at the box score and I were to tell you, hey, Mahomes is going to finish with 151 yards and 2 interceptions, and Joe Burrow is going to finish with 258 yards and 2 touchdowns, you'd probably think the Bengals get out of there alive, and they don't. They lose by a point. And to Mark's point right there, yeah, you can debate it all you want, but at the end of the day, it just seems like, and this is the problem that we've all dealt with. If anybody's had to go through the Chiefs at some point, you've dealt with this assuredly, and that's they just seem to get the one break that no one else does, whether it's accurate or not. It just seems to fall that way. It fell that way again for Kansas City this past weekend. So, Sam, you can't be upset about the fact that the Bengals lost, but you lost in sort of a similar fashion to those same Chiefs the week before, where it's very close. And no cigar. Frustrating is the only way to really put it. But what did you make of what you saw from Cincinnati against the Kansas City Chiefs this past weekend?
I feel for the Bengals. I really do. I think going into the season, actually, I
like
was
this guy.
Let's hold on for a second because I was down on the Bengals entering the season. Honestly, I thought they were going to be one of the bottom teams in this division. But man, that Bengals Chiefs game showed me something. It's something that I wanted to see. A lot of Ravens fans talk about how they don't like the Bengals fans because the Bengals haven't proven anything, but I think that Week 2 game proved that they are one of the top teams in the AFC for sure, and they can hang with the Bengals. You saw what they did to Patrick Mahomes. Something, even though the Ravens were within a toe line of beating the Chiefs, the Ravens didn't do to the Chiefs what the Bengals did to the Chiefs. So I think that the Bengals definitely have something to build upon here. If Joe Burrow can stay healthy, this team is looking dangerous. One of the knocks on the Bengals to me would be that they can't really stop the run like that, but they're built to beat the Chiefs. I mean, we saw it here. So, a flag here, a flag there, a catch here, a catch there is a difference. And I think if those two teams meet in January, it could be very different indeed.
Habitual line stepper. He's saying Zim, because by the way, as Mark just said, I think Instant Classic might be what we rename the show. That might just be what we rename the show going forward. Habitual line stepper saying, Zim, I will vouch on Bobby's behalf. He did call it an Instant Classic as always with the Chiefs and the Bengals. And I will say last week, we did say we couldn't wait for this game because no matter the outcome, we knew it was going to be a good one. That's what it wound up being. We knew that these two teams play each other exceptionally well. You could argue no one's really played the Chiefs better than the Bengals. The difference is, though, is the Bengals have had the ability to get that one extra play against the Chiefs that other teams haven't. This game, it just didn't wind up happening. I'm dying to hear your thoughts here because it has to be beyond frustrating to feel like you were the better team. You go into a place that's almost impossible to win, and it comes down to a play at the end that's just out of your control. And when Bucker comes out, as I mentioned earlier, it just feels automatic at this point. So walk me through top to bottom, including how you felt the game ended and whether or not you thought it was fair as your Bengals fall to 0-2.
Hell no, it wasn't fair. So, but life isn't fair. I think the panel is going to see I stay pretty consistent. Like it's a L. I want to start with that. Mark made a great point. He was saying there was a lot of red. I am used to the Bengals traveling pretty well. I go to a lot of games like throughout the season or whatever. I had a really good season, whatever. I mean, surrounded. I went to all the Chiefs ones when we beat them in the AFC Championship game, when we lost to them in the AFC Championship game, when we beat them at our stadium, whatever, like surrounded by nothing but Chiefs. That was a weird like dichotomy in itself. And I don't know. I was telling somebody this outside of whatever. The fans, I don't know if people catch this at home. They put a lot of pressure on the refs to call. They're louder on pass interference. They're louder on holding anything on it. They're louder on that than anything. They're louder than that than an actual touchdown. I don't know if that plays in. That's like a theory I'm working on. But let's get back to the game. No, dead serious. Like anybody that's been to,
I love it.
if you go to Arrowhead game, I promise you, they're louder on calls than the actual touchdowns. The game itself, I'm not a referee guy. Like I feel like the Bengals had their chances throughout the game. They kicked 4 field goals, and each time it felt like they were going to score. We stripped the ball from the running back. I forgot that. I think it was Carson Steele or whatever. He fumbles. We don't capitalize on it. The Bengals had chance after chance after chance, and they scored only 25 points off of that. And my son, he's young. He's 8 years old, but he's like, oh, that's a great play. And I'm like, chill out. You got to score touchdowns right here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and he was celebrating a little too soon throughout the game. But from the beginning to the end, I thought Joe Burrow was in full command of the game. I think he has like over 100 quarterback rating in that game. He could have threw for 300. 2 big plays. Gesicki had a drop right before Burrow's fumble, which was a very big play. That was a very big play that he dropped. The Bengals targeted the tight ends 16 times in this game, connected on 14 out of 16 for over 150 yards. 60% of the snaps, Jamar Chase was double teamed with no T. Higgins. So the game plan, Bengals went 12 personnel, heavy run, heavy whatever. And every time that they gave Chase Brown like the ball, he had 7-8 yards of carry. They didn't run enough for me. The other big drop, 2 minutes, a minute and 40 left. Bengals are driving with the lead. They throw the ball to Yoshi on like I think it's 3rd down. Big drop. If he catches that pass, the stuff at the end, we don't even see it. And that's kind of how I like watch football. Like you cannot give the Kansas City Chiefs a chance to even put it in the rest way. And to me, that's the theme of the game. I know a lot of people will focus in on the Jamar Chase thing. I just think from week to week, they're going to have a game plan on like, if he's getting doubled up, we're going to go to this guy. We're going to go to this guy. So I don't really read in too much to that. I think he has a more favorable matchup coming up on Monday night, but that's really it, man. It was a really good game. I don't know if y'all saw this, but it was one of the highest rated games in all of September, dating back to 1998. So a lot of people watched it. A lot of people enjoyed the rivalry. Up until that game, I confidently felt like anytime we play the Chiefs, we would beat them. Our experience with the Chiefs is vastly different than other teams. Burrow going into that game was 3-1 against them, and I always felt like he played his best ball. If you know anybody else that watched Bengals versus Chiefs, they'll tell you Burrow outplayed him even in the one loss that he had prior to that. He outplayed him in it. That was the worst Mahomes game I probably have ever seen. He threw 3 interceptions. They overturned one of them, so you only see 2 in the box score. One of the interceptions from Cantaloupe Britt. I think he's going to have a great season, but he has an amazing one-handed catch, so that was cool. But when you lose, nobody gives a damn.
If your son ever needs a lesson in knowing the game ain't over till it's over, tell him to go back and watch the 2021 divisional playoffs. have a touchdown lead or a field goal lead with 13 seconds left, and let them know how that game wound up going down. It's never over against these Kansas City Chiefs. You brought up something I'm interested to get your point on real quick, the Jamar Chase situation. It comes out before the game. He's not going to continue to advocate for a deal this year. And then he blows a gasket in this game. You never see guys get called for personal fouls like that in the NFL. It feels like you can do whatever you want to these refs. They don't throw the flag. It was bad enough to where they wound up throwing it. You're in the stands. You're watching this unfold. The flag comes down. Your overall take on that, because it just felt like that was a culmination of the frustration going on with the Bengals in this game. And then ultimately, it just feels like it's one more thing that leads to a Chiefs W where they don't make the dumb move that other teams somehow do, or they do the one other thing. So your takeaway from that whole thing, because you really don't see that a whole lot in the league anymore.
Yeah, that's like a basketball, baseball type of thing where the referee is like, like, I'm going to make it about me. And to me, I thought Jamar should have chilled out 100%. But I don't think that they should have called that one either. But I don't know. I my takeaway from it, I know a lot of people that I think are hating on him or whatever. Like, mind you, I'm with Jamar's dad, like watching the game, so it's a little different. So a lot of people are like, oh, he's a diva and all these different things like that. And I don't believe that, but I do think what you just said, the validity of the contract stuff was very much a boiling point, frustration point. You're not getting paid. The dude, in my mind, gator rolls on him, hip drop, whatever you want to call it. He did the same thing that Tyler Boyd is the backstory in the AFC Championship game when we lost. It knocked Tyler Boyd out the game. So the backstory is that he rolls up on Jamar Chase's knee, and it looks like he could have like snapped it. So of course, Jamar, no contract, is saying, "Oh my God, like this dude almost broke my leg. Y'all not gonna call it?" And so he's pissed, but he's got to chill out. I appreciated Joe Burrow getting in his face and being like, "Bro, like get your shit together." And I love to see that Joe didn't back down and say, "I don't care that you're Jamar Chase. Like you better get back in the huddle." And there's validity to also say if he doesn't get that penalty, the Bengals might convert on third down. So that was very costly. And when you think about, or I think about the shortcomings of my football team or the Bengals in the history of our franchise, it's a lot of meltdowns. It's a lot of stupid shit like that. And so when you see it, you're like, oh my God, here we go again. I think a lot of it got overblown. I don't think they should have called it, but at the same time, he was in the wrong.
The silver lining for your Bengals, despite being 0-2, Commanders up next, Panthers up next. 3 of their next 4 games includes the Commanders, the Panthers, and the Giants. So you got to think, I mean, we know how it went with New England in week 1, but I think if you're looking at those 3 games, anybody with a sane mind is taking the Bengals to win those 3. So could be a great spot coming up for Cincinnati. We've seen them start 0-2 for whatever reason. Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow in the first 2 weeks, they just don't get it done. Yet, despite the duration of the season, they do end up getting it done. So you got to think that the track will get back, or the Bengals will get back on track coming up here at some point. I don't know if we can say the same right now for these Baltimore Ravens. An 0-2 start, not ideal when you're talking about having to face Dallas on the road. You have to face Buffalo in a couple of weeks, and of course your Bengals in a couple of weeks as well, Zim. It's a tough road ahead for a Ravens team that had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter this past week, and we're a toe away from maybe taking it to overtime or winning against Kansas City. A spot they easily could have been 2-0 in is a spot they find themselves 0-2 in. This is a theme that, for some reason, has become common with the Baltimore Ravens, and that is going into the fourth quarter with a lead. They now lead the league in terms of finding ways to lose these games, and it's really puzzling when you have the 2-time MVP and as good of a coach as Harbaugh is, this roster phenomenal head scratcher this past week, finding a way to lose this game to the Las Vegas Raiders. Zay, what did you take away from Baltimore having this game in the bag, and then all of a sudden you blink, couldn't do anything offensively in the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden, my God, Gardner Minshew just let him down the field for a game-winning field goal?
Well, as I watched back through the highlights, it seems as if he did what Kevin Stefanski kind of did, and that was not to do any running at the end of the game with a lead. I think Bobby talked about it last week, saying Lamar Jackson doesn't need to do all of this stuff. I think I'm starting to beg to differ that. I think you need Lamar Jackson, the runner. This Lamar Jackson, the passer, clearly isn't getting it done the way that you want it. And the Ravens are at their best when Lamar Jackson is scrambling around, that is able to open up the offense in other ways. And if he's only rushing the ball 5 for 45, you're pretty much letting him, the defense, be like, okay, well, let's see what Lamar the thrower can do for us. And when you got Max Crosby coming down your throat 24/7, I mean, you see how that goes. So I think honestly, Lamar Jackson needs to be that guy that's the run it through him 24/7. He needs to have more than 5 carries, in my opinion, because that's when I think they're at their best. But in all, like I said, the Raiders, they went to their money guys. Brock Bowers was destroying them. Devontae Adams was making catch after catch in crucial situations. And a stat for you: Gardner Minshew is 2-0 in the past 2 years versus the Ravens. So maybe he's got their number in that area. So.
Minshew mania. He's the modern day Fitzpatrick. I don't know how he does it. They end up doing it. That was a game, though, where, I just don't know how you could have possibly fathomed the Ravens losing that game heading into the fourth quarter, especially at the home opener, knowing how tough their schedule is coming up, knowing how close they were week 1. It just felt like a have-to-have-it game, and they did have it. So, Mark, you're watching the Ravens. It's in the bag, and all of a sudden, they're back at the customer service desk returning the W. What did you make of what you saw from Baltimore this past weekend?
I thought the Raiders defense was pretty physical too. Max Crosby is the one. He's looking to go, I hope it's my TJ Watt to be defensive player of the year and whatnot. But I think Max Crosby had a really outstanding game. He was in the backfield like 4 or 5 times, getting sacks with a lot of pressures. I don't know the safeties. I don't know his first name, but the safety for the Raiders, his name was Epps. He came down with a massive tackle. They were kind of setting the tone and matching it with the Ravens too. And I just checked the stats because I was waking up, by the way, it was my 3 a.m. So I was waking up, watching my game, watch this game too. No apologies. No, I was watching this game, then my game next. But I went to the stats, right? I didn't realize that the Raiders only rushed the ball for 27 yards and they still won the game. Like, that's insane to me. The fact that the Ravens stopped their rushing attack and they still won, and Minshew Mania, that was another one of the upsets of the week. I thought there's no way it's going to happen, and that's why football is so crazy. You're thinking Ravens take care of business and get it all done. They can run the rock with Henry and Lamar Jackson, have a really big game, but they ran down they were getting first downs. They got 4 field goals. They chipped away. They kept in the game, and they ended up winning the game near the end. So that could go another one either way. But the same kind of thing that the fellas at the start, it was my 2 easy wins. That should have been maybe an easy win as well, to put it back on you guys as well. So I thought overall it was a good game. But the Ravens, if you're meant to be the super team or whatever it is, or meant to be, much higher odds than my team winning the division, much higher odds to win the Super Bowl, paying all the money for Lamar Jackson, paying all money for this. I know Harbaugh is getting a lot of flack too. I think his Ravens fans are going after him for certain decisions and stuff like that. That's one of those games where you think you'd have to win, but then it reminds you that pretty much all 31 teams in the NFL besides the Panthers are open to play, because they don't want to play this year besides them.
Cheap shot.
It's a great point you make. I didn't even realize that either. 27 rush yards and a double against a team like that. That's crazy. But it was the Brock Bowers, Devontae Adams show. That's what was supplementing that whole thing. Brock Bowers comes alive, and Devontae Adams looks like prime Green Bay Packers Devontae Adams in this game. And Gardner Minshew, despite the pick, 30 of 38, and they just never went away. They stayed on the heels of the Ravens the entire time. It felt like the Ravens helped them out a bit, but the Raiders, to their credit, they did what they had to do towards the end. So, Zim, you're watching this one. Obviously, being a Bengals fan, you're keeping you're keeping focused on Baltimore. That would seemingly be your biggest task in order to win this division. So we thought, who knows the way that the NFL started off the first
it's looking
games.
like Mark now, right?
I know.
I got to watch out for Mark now is what they're telling me.
Mark's going nowhere. He never has, but it just felt like the way the Ravens were last year, 13 W's, coming into this year, trying to avenge the loss in the AFC Championship. They now start 0-2, but the way that they started 0-2 this past weekend, your thoughts from what you saw from Baltimore, especially in that fourth quarter?
Their season reminds me so much of the Bengals in 2022. The Bengals had a bunch of turnover at the offense, like they interchanged different offensive linemen. They had a bunch of changes like on other different portions of like the offensive coordinator, all these different things. One of the things that I kept on talking about, and we talked to Bobby about this on like the first show, I said the new secondary coach, new defensive line coach, offensive line coach, rest in peace to him. You had the defensive coordinator, all these things that I said, I think that those are major things. And to me, the number one stat that I always came back and said is that the Ravens, every year that Lamar's been in the NFL, they've had a top 3 defense. The one time that he didn't in 2021, they did not make the playoffs. Also talking about a stat or whatever that you want to say, the Ravens, anytime that they've been 0-2 to start off a season, they've never made the playoffs. The last time that they had this was 2015. I did watch the game. When I did watch it, one of the first things I noticed is that first Tucker field goal barely went in. It was like 48 yards. He had a deep pass to Andrews that I thought he overthrew. He was wide open. Bateman had a big bobble later in the game. That's key. He also had a really great catch though in the third quarter. Like their composite score of their offensive line is actually still grading as top 10, but that's because of the high play of Linderbaum in the left-hand side of the line. When you watch it, anytime Falele or anything on the right-hand side gets a stunt or anything like that, I understand. I sympathize with Ravens fans by saying like this line is dog shit. But when you go watch other teams' offensive lines too, they're pretty shitty too. And I think that Ravens aren't understanding like this is what a lot of teams' offensive lines look like when you interchange 2-3 new pieces or whatever. I thought Bowers, who people don't know, the Bengals would have drafted Brock Bowers. The Falcons picking Penix changed a whole lot of stuff. The Bengals would have drafted Brock Bowers. I guarantee you that. So Brock Bowers having his way, Devontae Adams having his way or whatever. I mean, I don't know, man. I feel like that's a big portion of what they're, what I think of the Ravens. I think of top 3 defense. I think of the best kicker of all time, all these different things. And some of those things are starting to dwindle away. Can they resurrect that? I think they can. But the task that they have ahead of them, I talked about stunts and different things like that. Micah Parsons looking around the corner. he's going to be saying, yeah, I like Daniel Falele. He'll line up anywhere. The week after that, Von Miller and Russo are right now currently the best graded DNs in National Football League. So you got some things. If you're not 100% sound on that offensive line, we're going to see how it plays out. I think that Rosengarten and some of the other guys that they have could work out for them, but they got to figure it out and solidify it quick because it showed up at the worst time with Max Crosby.
Sam, it'd be one thing if this was a one-off, right? It'd be one thing if this was just, oh, man, it happens, blown lead, wasn't our day. This is a common occurrence. Not only does Harbaugh lead the league in this since 1990 in terms of games blown in the fourth quarter, but under Lamar Jackson, this is now, the 10th game where they've had at least a 7-point lead in the fourth quarter and wound up losing it. We know what happened with Miami not all that long ago where they were up by an insane amount. They blow that game. But it's in this one against the Raiders where you're clearly the superior team. You know what's up ahead of you. You know an 0-2 start doesn't bode well for any team in the NFL. The Ravens really don't start this way, the way that their years have gone in the past. One of the better organizations in the last couple of decades here. Just a lot of this made no sense, but at the same time, the way things have been going with Baltimore, it kind of did make sense. So talk to me about two things here. One, the game itself, and then two, this just ongoing terrible trend with Baltimore where they're finding ways to lose these games as opposed to closing them out.
Yeah, well, for starters, the Raiders game was definitely not a surprise if you were a Ravens fan paying attention. Zim talked about it. The offensive line has been crazy. And I think to Zim's point, yeah, there are other offensive lines that have had issues and, interchanging 3 new offensive linemen will definitely cause some havoc for your quarterback or your running back or whatever. But the issue with this is the Ravens have better talent in reserve. They have Rosengarten, who they drafted in the second round. They have Ben Cleveland, who played right guard last year, ended the season with the 90-plus rating according to PFF. And they have Andrew Voorhees, but they can shift him out and put back Patrick McCary, who's a smaller lineman who could actually swing in and play that role. So they have options. And so I think the Ravens fans are very upset because John Harbaugh is pretty much keeping these guys at bay. People think that Ben Cleveland's probably in the doghouse, and there's probably some validity to that. And it's just a lot of things that the Ravens could be doing differently as far as personnel in that specific unit. Now, you talk about what John Harbaugh has done as far as, challenging plays that shouldn't be challenged, time management skills been out of whack, things of that nature. And that always creeps back to haunt you in these fourth quarter letdowns. So Ravens fans aren't surprised by this. They're used to these fourth quarter letdowns. Last year, the Ravens lost to the Colts. They lost to the Steelers, 2 teams that they will feel will be a tier below them. So it's not a surprise that they lose these bad games to bad teams. But moving forward, the Ravens need to make these adjustments. And based on what we heard from John Harbaugh, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. If it does happen, listen, this roster is still up there with the best of them. You still have the best quarterback in the division. I think Lamar Jackson is better than Joe Burrow. Definitely better than Sean Watson, clearly better than Justin Fields. So you have a quarterback that is capable of winning it. He's a 2-time MVP. No other MVPs in the division at all. So you still have the makeup to potentially win this division and potentially move on to bigger heights in the postseason. But for right now, that offensive line is crazy. And you look at the defense, the letdown, you have Zach Orr, second time calling plays ever in his career. He's been a player for most of his tenure in football, but now getting an opportunity. So he's a little more aggressive than Mike McDonald was, and therefore you saw a lot of those chances for Brock Bowers and Devontae Adams to make those plays. So he's going to have to probably reserve it a little bit because the cornerbacks probably aren't used to being left alone and not only one-on-one, and these linebackers in the middle of the field aren't getting the job done. So I think if you take a more reserved approach on defense, shore up that offensive line, hope that Lamar Jackson continues to do what he does because statistically speaking, he's still playing as good as football as he usually does at this point in his career. So I'm still high on the Ravens. I just hope that the Ravens don't get in their own way as the season approaches because you mentioned the Ravens have never made the postseason going 0-2. 0-3 will be disastrous for this franchise with Super Bowl aspirations.
No one really nearly ever has made the playoffs with an 0-3 start. Since 1994, teams have made the playoffs after starting 0-3. So essentially a death sentence if the Ravens can't get it back on track this upcoming weekend against the Dallas Cowboys. So for the Baltimore Ravens fan base sake, hopefully Lamar and company are able to find a way to get it done against those Cowboys this upcoming week. We're going to talk about that game and a lot more in an episode later this week where we preview all of week 3. We'll talk about all of the games for all of the fellas in here that are coming up right around the corner. Before we close up shop today, quick shout out to our friends over at Shinesty. The Ravens fan base is probably going to need a couple of these if they wound up losing another one here, just because.
Why? Because they're going to shit their pants?
That's what I'm telling you. I mean, you said it, not me, Zim, but I'm thinking an 0-3 start might require a couple pairs of Shinesties to kind of refresh things. And right now we got you covered. Code RTS10 over on the Shinesty website. Links in the description below. That's going to get you 10% off any order that you place right now on Shinesty. They got some cool stuff on here, by the way. The one I was looking at right here, fellas, I don't know about you. These ones are calling me right here. The Wakey Wakies. What do you think about those, Mark? Little bacon and eggs on your boxers, right? You're waking up 2-0 with those on. You got to be feeling like a king.
Oh, I feel like a superstar, mate. Wakey. Hands off Snakey, am I right?
Hands off Snakey.
Exactly. It's going to be tough to keep the hands off Snakey with those bad boys on, Mark.
There's some dope designs on there, man. It was an orange and black pair on there. I really appreciate it on there. I might have to go log in right now that I seen that.
Zim's about to tap in. You can tap in too. Like I said, RTS10 gets you 10% off over on Shinesty. On the way out, by the way, if you don't mind, hit the like and subscribe button. We have over 400 people in here tonight. Well, throughout the show, it's been the same. That means we're continuing to add more and more each and every week, and that's because the season's getting very interesting. So hit the subscribe button so you're notified of our next episode, including the one I was just telling you about, where later in the week we preview week 3. Zim, talk to me.
Can I tell people too, it's very important if you represent in your fan base, make sure y'all tell them about this, because how many times have you watch ESPN? How many times have you watch all of these other shows and they don't know a damn thing about their team? Then you got people like Samuel, you got people like Zay, you got people like Mark that can come in and actually know exactly and watch every single snap and can tell you about their team. If you're not telling other people about this, you're not doing this right. You have to tell everybody, send them the link, text them the link, and let them know to come on over and help you cook up in the chat. The chat be fiery and it's lit, and we got to keep it lit.
Damn right. Not only should you hit the subscribe button, hit the copy link button and send it to all your friends. On your way out, also hit the BetUS website for a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, as well as a 125% sign-up bonus on your next 2 deposits after that. Just use the promo code YouTube150 and you'll be ready to rock for week 3. And as I keep mentioning, we'll be ready to rock with you for week 3 as well. We'll be previewing all the games later on this week, and then a week from tonight, we'll be back with you to recap week 3. So hit the subscribe button on the way out so you are set up for all of those. Can't thank you enough for tuning in for the week 2 recap. For Zay, for Zim, for Sam, for Mark, I'm your host, Zeba. Thanks so much again for tuning into this episode of the AFC North Roundtable, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Hurry.